Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
Broadcasting from Huntington Beach, California, and the New York City coast to coast. A big welcome from the Big Apple and from LA to all our listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave Nassaney on the Caregiver Dave radio show, coming to you live from the syndicated all positive talk radio network, healthylife.net, broadcasting in all 50 states and 135 countries with my lovely co-host Adrienne Gruberg, who has arisen from her deathbed. She wasn't feeling good yesterday. From caregiverspace.org. Say hello, Adrienne.
Hello, Adrienne.
See, she's really there. All right, and just a reminder, all our shows are available on demand at healthylife.net and on our membership website, caregiverdave.com, voted number 2 best podcast of the top 6 caregiver podcasts by caring.com. And if you go right now to caregiverdave.com, our free burnout quiz is there, as well as our first book, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships, absolutely free. So do that right now before you start listening to the show. And we have an exciting show planned for you today. We will be interviewing Julie Potiker. When life gets crazy, you can keep your cool, or can you? Our guest today is mindfulness expert Julie Potiker, author of the new book, Life Falls Apart, But You Don't Have to. Mindful Methods for Staying Calm in the Midst of Chaos. Julie, welcome to the show. So excited to have you.
I'm really glad to be here.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you because you're coming from, like, Mexico. From whereabouts in Mexico?
We're in La Paz, in a
La
marina.
Paz. And she's on a sailboat. It's kind of a yacht, but not really. It's about 70 feet, but...
Oh, cut it out.
Any crew?
Besides your
No, not right now.
the captain?
Not right now.
So you two can handle that boat all by yourselves. I'm impressed. Because the biggest one I've ever sailed is 55 feet. And, you know, I need at least 1 or 2 people on that one. I think it was, I had a catamaran, too, that big. And those are pretty cool. You can put 20 or 30 people on those on the top deck, on the netting between the 2 hulls, and you can really have a lot of fun.
That's heavenly.
But we'll talk about sailing another time. How did you first learn about mindfulness practice?
I was so stressed out that I thought I might be having some brain event, like a brain tumor or some horrible thing happening because the wrong words were coming out of my mouth. And I went to a neurologist, and he did a complete workup. And when he gave me a clean bill of health from the brain physiology perspective, he said, actually, you have too much stress. You're suffering from burnout, and you need stress management. And he recommended mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is a 40-year-old class. You know, John Kabat-Zinn created for the pain clinic at UMass 40 years ago. And I took the class, and it was super helpful in terms of techniques and tools, but it led me to neuroscience classes, which then led me to retreats, which then led me to mindful self-compassion, which got invented, which was fantastic, which then led me to be a teacher of that, and, you know, on and on and on and on, because the stuff works.
So let me stop you right there, because you were describing my wife when she was having a stroke, you know, and she had aphasia. Does this really happen to people who aren't having a stroke and aren't having a neurological issue? How does it play out? I mean, what was your official diagnosis?
So, my official diagnosis was stress. I had, at the time, my 3 kids were teenagers, and they all have ADHD, which is not to say, like, that's such a horrible thing, but it makes homework really hectic and stressful, and they have poor impulse control at the time, and my parents were aging, and it was just literally too much. And I was, volunteering in all these different capacities and running this one nonprofit, and I literally had the wrong words coming out of my mouth.
You also sound sleep deprived. Was that going on as well?
Yeah, I'm sure I was sleep deprived. I'm sure like the self-care that caregivers know they're supposed to do, I wasn't doing. So
Yeah,
I was kind of a train wreck.
Yeah, because I will get punchy like that too when I'm up too long and I'm just I've just had it and I can't even speak. The words don't come out right. I say, okay, it's time to go to bed. And especially if you have a glass of wine or something, that just enhances it. But I like to ask my guests, and I should have asked you this first, but we were off to a rough start here. Who the heck is Julie Potiker, and why was she put on this earth? That should have been your first question.
Wow.
Yeah, I blew it.
I don't. I think I was put on this earth to alleviate suffering in others, honestly. And I think that I'm just trying to model love and be love and teach it and help people heal. I think that's my game.
So you're speaking primarily to people who maybe have had your symptoms as well, symptoms of stress. What role is mindfulness playing in your life right now? I mean, do you still get that way sometimes? Do you are you tempted to make the same mistakes you made before?
No. I mean, I've been doing this practice in varying degrees and forms of it for over 10 years. And so I can notice when an emotion's coming up in my body. That's mindfulness, right? Mm-hmm. And then I can compassionately say, what do I need? Because that feels bad. Oh, that's grief, or that's sadness, or that's anger, or whatever it is. Then I can respond compassionately to myself because I'm a mindful self-compassion teacher. What do I need to give myself right now that I notice that this is arising? You have to know it's arising, to know to be good to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And you were a caregiver as well to your dad, you said?
My dad died 2.5 weeks ago. Not even 2.5 weeks. Oh. Just two.
This is
2
fresh.
weeks and some change. This is raw.
A fresh, open wound.
Loss.
Thank you. It stinks. Oh my God, and especially during the holidays. It's terrible. That's why we ran away to the boat. It was like if I heard one more thoughts and prayers, I mindfully wanted to smack somebody in the face. So
this is what it takes. This is what it takes to get you to your boat. See, if you were doing this more often, then you wouldn't be stressful because that's what the boats are for. So how good or how bad were you in getting on the boat while you were a caregiver, while you were going through all of this stuff?
Well, I wasn't on the boat. I was with my dad in La Jolla in San Diego, and Lowell sailed the boat down to Mexico with crew and with friends. Mm-hmm. And then he came back.
It's docked in Mexico?
Yeah, it's docked in Mexico. And then he came back to San Diego the night my dad passed away, and so he was actually there. That was one of those, I'm an attorney by education, so I'm not very spiritually woo-woo. But the fact that he came back and my dad passed that night and he went from being very alive to very dead in 4 hours was some universal thing that, is not in my wheelhouse. That's amazing that my husband made it back for that, to be a support for me and to my sister. So, yeah.
So he actually sailed the boat from La Jolla to La Paz, or no? I guess that's the only way you get it down there. How long did it take him?
Well, it wouldn't have taken as long. They were in a rally, so it was 11 days. But you could do that in, I think, 6 or 7 days. I mean, he sailed it to Honolulu in 10.5 days, and that's much farther.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you my number. If you ever need anything, ever need a crew member,
Absolutely.
just call me up.
Absolutely.
I'll just bring my wife with me. What the heck? We can hang her
Absolutely.
from a trapeze. Okay, getting back to business here.
Is she
uh, t-
okay?
Tell us what your father's disability or illness was and how long it took. How long were you his caregiver and how that went?
Well, so my dad was really independent, and he had congestive heart failure, and then just a month before he passed, he got sick with a lung issue that had been something that was brewing. So I don't really want to get
Yeah.
into his whole medical history because I think it's personal. But at the very end, it was the combination of circumstances. His heart went into tachycardia, ventricular tachycardia, and that is actually what he eventually
Died.
passed away from.
How
So
old was he?
he was 87,
Well, he lived a good
and
life.
my mom passed. My mom passed 3.5 years ago, and I was also in the trenches with her when
Mm-hmm.
she passed. And I noticed that um, that my grief when my mom passed was so outrageous, and a lot of it was because I was heartbroken for my dad. I was having
Mm.
empathetic resonance for my dad,
Mm,
and now that he's gone and there's no spouse for me to have my heart broken for, my grief isn't as heavy,
mm,
which I find fascinating. I'm going to write a blog on it. But the empathetic resonance issue is something that's really on all fours for your constituency, because
yeah,
doctors and nurses and healthcare providers, that's how they get burnout. They're empathetically resonating with their patients, their
right.
clients, and they get overwhelmed because they're not. It's empathy fatigue, not compassion fatigue. Do you know the
Yeah,
difference between those two things?
yeah.
Are
Tell us
you
for
are
those.
you
Tell us
following?
for those who don't know. Tell us.
So if you're mirroring somebody's neurons and you're really feeling their suffering, and you're not feeling compassion, which is more action for them to alleviate their suffering, and
Hmm.
self-compassion action to take
Right.
care of yourself and hold all that suffering, you can get so overwhelmed that that's what causes burnout.
Mm,
So it's really, whether you're an accidental caregiver, family member like I was, or whether you're a professional caregiver, that burnout thing happens in the same way.
wow. Well, you've got a good attitude because you probably didn't know your father was going to die when this show was originally scheduled, right?
No, I did not, and I was still supposed to be in San Diego, and I was supposed to have you in my in my office on my big computer, not on my phone.
It would have been very easy for you to call and say, "Oh, my father just died. I'm going to have to cancel the show." And people have done that in the past, but good for you for pushing on
Yeah, I'm
and
not. I'm not that
Life
woman.
goes on.
and you're on a sailboat in Mexico, and that would be another excuse why you can't do it. And look at you. You just broke all the odds.
Well, I have to
Kudos.
share with you that what you're doing is really important. I just
Thank
took
you.
a teacher. I just took a teacher training that finished on Sunday.
Mm.
That is that it's the mindful self-compassion adaptation for healthcare communities.
Mm,
Mm.
So, it couldn't be more perfect that I'm talking to you now, because now they're training people that are already mindful self-compassion teachers like I am to teach healthcare workers. It's 6 hours total instead of 27 hours. So they took this ginormous 8-week, 3-hour-a-week curriculum, and they chunked it down to what would be the most helpful for burnout for healthcare people. And it's 1 hour a week for 6 weeks, and now they're testing it one day for 6 hours, and then they're going to test it,
Mm-hmm.
one. Anyway, it's completely empirically tested up and down and sideways, because that's what Kristen Neff does. And they've been working on it for 3 years, and I was in the first group of teachers they just trained.
mm.
And it's to help like nurses and doctors in the operating room and going patient to patient and at the bedside and dealing with families. How are they gonna manage their own stuff and be present and not just be compartmentalizing and not just be like, oh, self-care, oh, sorry, I'm at the patient's bedside, but I really feel like I need to go get a massage, because that's not possible, right? That's not how it works in the hospital, right? Like they think self-care, there's got to be things for them to do in the trenches to manage their stress so that they don't burn out. And that's what they've now developed a curriculum for that, which is a blessing.
Oh,
So it's to show empathy and compassion for themselves, not the patient.
So it's both. It's one for me, one for you, Adrienne. So if I was, if you were telling me something like, you were just sick in bed and I was feeling like really bad for you, and I would be breathing in for me and breathing out for you, breathing in for me and breathing out for you. So it's like just how you think in your mind of both you and the other person, and you're holding yourselves both with kindness.
You're the first guest we've had on the show speaking on this topic. In fact, I've never actually heard of the concept of mindfulness. Have you, Adrienne? Or the opposite of it would be...
I have John Kabat-Zinn's tapes.
You see, I'm sheltered. CDs. I'm really sheltered here on the West Coast. Adrienne is very knowledgeable and well connected, and I'm a Johnny-come-lately, I guess. I've just been in my home for 23 years, caring for my wife and running a gas station. But for those who might be like me and not understand the term, can you give a brief description or definition of mindfulness and the opposite of it? Because I assume the opposite of it is being stressed out and being burned out. And mindfulness is bringing you back to normality, or how's that work?
Well, so Dave, there's been a lot of definitions of mindfulness that have been floating around in the last 40 years, and now it's so trendy. So there's tons of definitions if you Google it. But how I like to think about it is paying attention to what you're doing when you're doing it. So right now, I'm talking to you.
So not be distracted. I am easily distracted, and I think I need this really bad.
Yeah, I mean, they say it's living in the moment.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So we're wired to ruminate and worry. So anytime you are not worrying and not ruminating, you're right here, right now. You're giving your brain a break. It's fantastic. Right. So if you're having your morning coffee or tea, whatever libation you have in the morning, or Bloody Mary, I have no idea. I'm not judging. And you hold the cup and you feel the temperature of the cup, and then you look at it. So you've got you're trying to get all your senses involved. So you've got the feeling of it, the temperature of it, the look of it, the color of it, the smell of it, and then the taste of it. That's a mindfulness in daily life activity of your first sip of your morning beverage.
Wow, I must be more mindful than I realize, because I actually do that a lot, where I just get away on my hammock and I'm just kind of meditating on my life and today and last week and my family and what's the future. I'm not worrying or anything. I'm excited for my future. But that's a sort of mindfulness, isn't it?
If when you're on your hammock, you're if when you're on your hammock, you're noticing the air on your skin, right? And you're seeing with your eyes what is visible right there. And you're feeling the feelings in your body, and you're watching, like the little daydream that you just said. Yeah. You're watching those thoughts and feelings and emotions arise and pass, and you're not going to attach to any of them and go down a rabbit hole, then yes, that's mindful.
Wow. So listen to the silence, listen to the sounds out, the freeway that's 5 miles away that we could just faintly hear. Just be aware of your surroundings. As you said, the air that's blowing on the hair of my arm or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could take it to another level, I think. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I think you should do that every day.
Well, I think I will. Do you do that, Adrienne? She's going to say yes.
I
right?
believe that mindfulness is part of my life every day, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm the only one in the fray here. Well, thanks. Thank you for coming on the show.
There's probably a lot of things that you do that you never thought of to label as mindfulness or mindful self-compassion, but they are indeed that.
Yeah, and all the advice I give to people who are burned out, how to take care of yourself, how to eat right, sleep right, and, just put your oxygen mask on first and all that. But you're taking it to another degree, which is great, using all the senses, so that we are experiencing it.
And those things can ground you, like if you're a nurse and you're walking in, you've just left a patient's room that was something really very sad, which probably happens every single day for these people, these angels. How are they gonna meet the next person in the next room? What are they gonna do to drop where they just were and pick up where they're about to be? And an easy way that the mindful self-compassion adaptation is teaching is to drop your awareness down to the soles of your feet, which is another way of grounding yourself.
That's
and also, those hand sanitizers that they have to do. Yep. Like when they walk into the patient room, my dad was in ICU last month. You can do that because you got to do that anyway, and drop your awareness to the palms of your hands, and that break can bring you back into your body so that you meet the next individual with grace, basically.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, we've got to take a break, and we will be right back, so don't go away. Dave Nassaney, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too, Thrive to Stay Alive as a Caregiver. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through, because he is one. He now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his amazing caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first, before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today or buy one for your special caregiver. On sale everywhere and at caregiverdave.com. And we're back with Julie Potiker and Adrienne Gruberg. I'm Dave Nassaney. It's the Caregiver Dave Show on healthylife.net, all positive talk radio. And I want to talk about self-care, because everybody thinks that they can do it, but it's a lot harder than it is to actually do it in reality. It's easy to talk about, but it's hard to do. Putting your oxygen mask on first, because we're dealing with family many times, and they push our buttons, and we lose our temper. And so, what do you have to say about self-care and why it is so important for caregivers?
It's just so important for all humans because we suffer. We suffer wishing things were different than they are, right?
We do it to ourselves, too.
We have expectations. They're not met. I mean, stuff happens, and we wish it was other, and we suffer. So, I mean, I think self-care is the name of the game, and it could be taking a nap. It could be having a glass of wine. It could be, when my dad's health was really when it started getting scarier, I would try to make sure I took a walk outside every day. That really helped me. And when I was walking, I would feel my feet on purpose. I would drop my awareness to my feet, and I would feel my legs moving and my feet moving, and do the sights and the sounds and the whole thing to really give my whole self a break. And then I would go back and I would feel refreshed somewhat.
Yeah. Well, I want you to tell us how you are able to incorporate mindfulness into your role as a caregiver. Actually, no, I think I've already asked you that question.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your mindfulness tools, okay? See, you'd never know that I've been a radio host for 6 years. I'm just totally being unmindfulness today. Totally scattered brain. Did I get enough sleep? Okay. What mindfulness tools were most helpful during your time as a caregiver?
I think for me, noticing my breath in my body was really helpful. Also dropping my awareness down to either the soles of my feet, or if I was sitting, down to my sit bones, like feeling my body breathing as a whole. Occasionally I would have like an object in my hand. I call them here and now stones, but they're any kind of little rocks that you can get at a craft store, and I would use it like people use rosary beads or mala beads, and I would feel it, and just that tactile thing brought my attention back from, instead of ruminating and worrying, to right here, right now. So just all these little kind of dropping in and out all day long to break the discursive loop of worrying.
Mm-hmm. So how did you first learn that this was needed when you were burning out? I mean, what did it take for you to finally figure it out or come to the mindfulness topic?
Well, I think once the neurologist recommended MBSR to me, like I mentioned to you earlier, and I saw the brain science behind it, I realized that it would be healing to me. And once I healed myself, I realized I could heal others. And so that's just what and it's powerful stuff, and it's very, very easy. But you have to practice or it won't work. That's the only bummer, is that you have to practice when you don't need it so that you have it when you do.
Darn it,
because you're not going to be like, oh, I'm stressed out, let me look onto page 84.
Right.
You know what I
mean? You got to use it or lose it. I hate that word, practice. You know?
No,
like practice working out. Well, so what would you say? Go ahead, Adrienne.
It just becomes part and parcel of the day. The awareness, as I said, the living in the moment, and not looking past what's going on right now, not worrying about the bills that are due in 2 months, but just taking things one thing at a time, and living, of course, one day at a time. But I just find the meditation really does help. And I do listen to the tapes a lot.
How long have you consciously been doing this, Adrienne?
Since Steve died, maybe even before.
Yeah, so
How
it's part
many
of your
years?
routine.
9.
How much? 9, yeah. So I've been doing this probably a little more than 10 years, and I meditate every day, and I like the Insight Timer app because it's free, and there's thousands of meditations on there. I'm even on there.
Yes.
If you search for me in there, you'll even find my meditations in there. But I just like putting in the earbuds. I just like putting in the earbuds and following the voice, and then knowing that I gave myself a gift.
See, this is all new to me. This is an Insight Timer?
Insight Timer, INSIGHT Timer. You'll hear a lot about Headspace because they have really good marketing, but they
Mm-hmm.
charge people. It's
Yeah.
free, and then they get you hooked, and then they charge you, and I really resent that.
I can't believe
So
I've never heard of this stuff, as trendy as you say it is. I'm just not
well,
hanging out in the right places, I guess.
I'm actually surprised, Dave, but that shows you what opportunity there is in healthcare for this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Because
the
that's
caregiver's
Oh,
caregiver, and I don't know this
absolutely.
stuff.
I mean, it's the business that the way you talked about, a nurse will have to go from one room to the next room to the next room and leave each room behind as she goes on to the good of the patient. And I love the idea of using the hand sanitizer as a
Hmm.
focus.
Isn't that
That
amazing? It's
really
brilliant.
it's a
Yeah,
clarifier, yeah.
I'm
it's
sure I've
brilliant. And
made
you
up
know what?
some things that I've been doing, but I have no idea. I mean, I don't do it consciously. It's just something that has come about, but I think we need to be deliberate in what we do.
Right. And they say that if you compartmentalize, which is what most caregivers do, because it gives them a lot of power, right? And it helps them achieve at their best. The problem with it is it's cutting themselves off from not only themselves, but also from who they're caring for. And so eventually it doesn't feel good to be cut off. So how do you stay in loving, connected presence with who you're caring for? That's the whole self-compassion piece for caregivers, so that they can feel their feelings actually and titrate them
Yeah,
like a hose, so that it's not too much. It's really
Yeah.
it. I think it's brilliant.
yeah. Hey, listen, we're on another break. It comes so quickly.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Our featured speaker is a best-selling author who has written numerous books and articles. He's a speaker, life coach, and host of Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver radio program. He frequently appears on television and radio shows all across the country and has even shared the stage with Suzanne Summers at Harvard. But his most important role is caregiver to his beautiful wife, Charlene, for over 22 years. Please welcome Mr. Dave Nassaney!
I want to share with you a love story. In a couple of weeks, my wife and I will be celebrating 44 years of being together. My wife, Charlene, and I had a fairy tale, storybook, romance, courtship, and marriage for the first 21 years of our lives together. One day, out of nowhere, my wife has a headache, the headache of her life. She suffered a massive stroke, and it left her severely speech impaired and paralyzed on the right side. And in that moment, our world turned upside down. I gotta tell you, the next 2 years was like a living hell. I just didn't know what to do. I felt guilty most of the time. I became a caregiver. I didn't even know what a caregiver was. I was experiencing the same problems that other caregivers experience. If you don't take care of you, I can't take care of her. Well, that's why I wrote the book. Now I can teach other caregivers. I'm living proof that you can thrive as a caregiver. My wife and I travel now all over the world sharing our story. One day, life is going to call upon you to be the captain of your boat. Heck, you might be saving your own life. Thank you.
And we're back with Julie Potiker and Adrienne Gruberg. I'm Dave Nassaney. And there are so many lessons that you have learned in your role as a caregiver, I'm sure, because I can say that as well. And maybe it's hard for you to pick out the most important lesson. You know, as Curly would say in City Slickers, that one thing. What would it be?
So when I was at a teacher training in 2014 for the Mindful Self-Compassion curriculum, they led a meditation that I think was the biggest aha moment that I had. And I'm going to tell you these words, okay? So just listen to these words. And this, imagine it's in the middle of a meditation, and they're saying, let these words roll around your mind. Everyone is on his or her own life journey. I am not the cause of this person's suffering, nor is it entirely within my power to make it go away. even though I wish I could. Moments like this are difficult to bear, yet I may still try to help if I can. When I heard that, and then they repeat it again, and if it's a longer meditation, it gets repeated a third time. I had this like 10 tons of bricks lift off my heart from what I was carrying from my mom's sickness, my mom's illness, because she had heart disease. She had heart disease, but then she died from cancer. So that meditation like set me free. And it's one of the meditations now that they're teaching in the curriculum for healthcare workers. And if you're a healthcare worker, and let's say you're in the operating theater, and the surgeon is just being a maniac and he's yelling at everybody,
and you've got to stay calm,
which happens,
right? And in your mind, you could say those words to yourself that surgeon is on his own life journey. The hospital administrator is on her own life journey. Never mind your loved one or your patients or whatever. And there's so much that you cannot control, even though you wish you could. And it is difficult to bear. So I think the world of that meditation. That's called compassion with equanimity, if you're ever looking it up.
Wow. Learning so much here.
Yeah.
So, how has your time as a caregiver impacted your way of thinking and living and being in other aspects of your life?
Oh, I don't know how to answer that, honestly. I'm integrated. You know what I mean? Like my inside matches my outside. I am what I am.
Yep.
I am what I am.
I would gladly
get
pay
that.
you today for a hamburger today. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Adrienne?
A Bluto. I love it.
That's all I can stand, and I can't stand no more. That's when we...
more. That's right. I just wanted to know how it was that out of all of the different modalities that are out there for dealing with stress, you chose mindfulness and that path.
Well, it was the neurologist who said, I recommend MBSR. And it was just my own curiosity. Once I took that class that led me to take the Compassionate Brain series on, I think it was NICAM, and then I did Sounds True, and then I found Rick Hansen, and he ended up becoming a mentor to me, and he wrote Buddha's Brain and Hardwiring Happiness and Just One Thing and his new book Resilient, and now he's got a new book coming out, Neurodharma. And so I did a week-long silent retreat with him at Spirit Rock, which is in California, on meditation and science. I'm fascinated with the neuroscience and also with there's a nexus now between science and spirituality. Like, that's really cool to me. And I'm a lifelong learner. It's one of my core values. And so I just had the time and the interest. I had the interest and the time, and I just sort of went deep.
And I'm just Googling, MBSR. There's a lot of free 8-week online courses and stuff. Learn and practice mindfulness. Wow. This is a big deal. And it must work.
I had no idea, because most people that interview me are already in the mindfulness world, and they've read my book, and I don't know.
Well, you see, I'm not an educated caregiver. I'm a caregiver because I became a caregiver. It wasn't on my resume. I wasn't planning on it. It just happened. And I've just been kind of surviving and lately thriving. And now I teach people how to not just survive caregiving, but to thrive. And so I'm sure I've picked out bits and pieces of what mindfulness does. But
you do it yourself.
If I'd have known that there was a program that I can actually read and take an online course, I would be so much more capable to help other caregivers.
So you're about to now. Because
Apparently
now,
I am.
yeah, because now, right? Because
Yeah, I
now
mean,
we've
Adrienne
met.
never brought it up to me. She never, hey, Dave, have you ever
Oh
thought of
no,
mindfulness?
I
I
Listen,
think
you
didn't.
she just
guys.
does it herself, too.
Listen, you
So
guys.
we
If you go
assume
on my
everybody knows it, and I
no,
bet you there's a bunch of people out there, caregivers like
okay,
me, even the good
yes.
ones, who maybe
Listen,
have no clue.
there's millions of people like you that are just good
Oh, thank
eggs
God.
trying to help somebody's life be better and trying to make
Yeah.
the world a better place. There's millions of people like you. If you go on my website on the resource and reading tab, there is literally a free library. It's
Mm.
everybody's newsletters, their books, their apps, not just mine, everybody who's ever who I ever thought was
Now,
terrific, and
don't
there's lots of
overwhelm me
them.
now.
Well, baby steps. Just take
Baby
one
steps.
at a time. Just take one at a time
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, this looks interesting. Oh, this is on audio. Oh, this is interesting."
Yeah,
And
because I don't
And
pretend to
you'll
know
find
everything.
that
I'm
I
learning every
think you
day.
I think you find that there are things that you're doing that are already part of it, Dave.
Probably.
totally.
You're
Or I
just not
wouldn't have
aware.
survived as long as I have. But I can at least take the
Exactly.
course and see, okay, I'm doing that, but I'm not doing that. Oh, I'm doing that,
Yes.
but I'm not doing that. And,
It's a
missing pieces of the
toolbox.
puzzle.
It's a toolbox that you
Yeah.
end up building. So you're just
Right.
going to end up adding more tools to your toolbox. Your toolbox is already excellent, or you
Yeah.
wouldn't be running the show.
Yeah, I must be doing something right, but we can all do what we do better, including me.
Exactly, which is why I just took that new training. I'm continually
Yeah.
taking new trainings because I want to see what else I can add to my toolkit.
Well, this show has been very insightful to me, and I'm sure it,
Mhm.
it will be insightful to everyone who hears it. Um, so we're approaching the end here. Let's take one more break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Anytime we suffer loss, we grieve. And a lot of people don't realize what even the grief process is. But it could be 5 to 7 steps ranging from denial, I don't believe this is happening, anger, oh my gosh, I'm so upset this is happening, to a form of bargaining, how can I get out of this, to depression, which is a very serious thing because that often leads to suicide. And then finally, after you realize you have no more control over your situation, and you're totally okay with the new normal that it brings, that wonderful, wonderful place called acceptance. And we're back with Julie Potiker and Adrienne Gruberg. I'm Dave Nassaney on the Caregiver Dave Show. And we have about 5 or 6 more minutes to go. I know it's hard to believe. Time flies when you're having fun. But what is the best piece of advice you can give to those who are newly stepping into the role of being a caregiver? And they have no clue of what hell is awaiting them. But we have to look at it positively, don't we?
I would say be kind to yourself.
I agree. It's like they say on the plane, if you can't take care of you, then who's going to take care of them, Unfortunately, if you have siblings who are next in line, maybe they're not as compassionate and empathetic as you. They'll just throw that loved one of yours in a nursing home, and 9 out of 10 of them I wouldn't put my cat in. You got to do a lot of research to find a good nursing home. Does it pass a smell test, et cetera, et cetera. So what about the non-caregivers, right? It's like the people who have cancer. All of a sudden, everyone who doesn't have cancer is giving you all this advice and, oh, here's what you should do, here's who you should see, and, don't do that and do this, and pretty soon you start closing yourself off to people. And I'm assuming, no, I can more than assume, I can tell you from personal experience that it's hard trying to deal with people because they don't know how to talk to us, caregivers. They don't know how to act. And pretty soon we're isolated because they just kind of feel bad that they can't help. and so on. And what experience have you had with that?
Oh, people just don't know how to say the right thing. Oftentimes, I think they're trying to help, and I think that we all want to connect because we're wired to connect because we're primates. And I think just allowing people I don't want to say stupidity, but people say the dumbest things. Just sort of cutting them slack for that, because realizing that they're nervous and they're uncomfortable with your pain and suffering and with your loved ones' pain and suffering. And so they say dumb things, and you just have to try to not snap back at them and just breathe it out and move on.
And somehow, at a subconscious level, I bet that they're fearing that could happen to them too. Almost like it must be contagious, or I might get jinxed if I get too close or something. I don't know what's going on in their minds, but isolation is a common thing. Fear that it'll happen to them.
Fear, yeah. And isolation leads to depression. So, getting out and connecting with people that make you feel good, not that make you feel bad, is really important.
Hello. He froze on us, but she'll be back. Yeah, I was going to say that I should wait till she comes back before I say that.
She just vanished.
Poof. But she has a tech support guy. I am so jealous. They are on a boat in La Paz. I mean, before I got married, I was going to sail around the world, So if I met the right girl to sail with me. And I thought I did, but she had 2 kids that, needed to be raised.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, she's back.
You guys froze.
No, you froze. It wasn't us, it was you.
I missed you.
Oh, we missed you too, but it's a good thing you came back. Forgot what I was going to say now.
So do you want to tell your people how to look for the mindful self-compassion stuff and also my stuff?
Yes, absolutely.
How can mindful self-compassion help caregivers, and how can they find it? And give us an example of something to try, all in one, 3 minutes. We lost her again.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we really need to find out how to let caregivers get in touch with her and find out all the info.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited because I wasn't expecting this.
Hello.
All right, we're going to try it again. So how can other caregivers... What?
I'm just afraid it's going to happen again.
It happens again, we'll do it again.
Okay.
All right, what did you say about not worrying? Okay, you got to take your own advice. See, they can preach it, but they can't do it. Okay. So how can caregivers learn more about this and maybe get some examples of things they can try to get even more excited and do more? Because the more they do, the more they want to do.
If they go to my website, which is mindfulmethodsforlife.com, they can really learn a ton about mindful self-compassion and also taking in positive mental states for happiness and resilience, which is rewiring your brain, and also happiness practices and gratitude practices. And, there's a big, broad range of tools for their toolbox. Then if they go into the reading tab, they can see all the different books they might be interested in. There's a workbook called the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook that's really great. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yes.
That's Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer, and they wrote the curriculum, and they just recently developed this workbook, and it's fantastic. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a ton out there, and the adaptation for healthcare workers is completely brand new. So they're not going to be able to find it online yet, but they will hopefully have it at a hospital near them very soon.
Yeah, I've been contacting a lot of nursing homes and senior centers and assisted living places, trying to convince them to have me speak there and put on a little workshop, not only for their caregivers, but for the caregivers of the loved ones who brought them into the facility. And it would be a great selling point for them that they care
Of
about
course.
caregivers, not only their own caregivers, but them, because they're the ones who decide, where to put their loved ones. And
That's
no one has answered
fantastic.
me yet, which I think is incredible because, just from a competitive point of view, if you can advertise what you're doing to help caregivers, your own and you, who they're talking to, you have that much up over your competition. But,
Right.
Who knows who these people are who run in the facilities, It's like some of them are not really
Conglomerates.
smart from a marketing point of view and from an empathetic point of view. A lot of paid caregivers have told me that they feel like their bosses don't give a crap about them. They're just animals, just put in the hours and.
Usually it's money, right,
Yeah.
Dave?
Oh, it's all about money.
Exactly.
So if you show them, and there's a ton of studies in mindfulness programs in the corporate world, if you show them the data that it improves employee productivity and it decreases sick days, which it does, you might be able to hit them where it means something to them.
Yeah, and I needed to hear all of this because this is a great topic of curriculum, especially that workbook that you mentioned that I can certainly bring into there. So I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep hitting, and if they don't answer the phone, I'll go banging on their door.
I have faith in you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on the show. It was very insightful for me, as for everyone listening, I'm sure. Adrienne, how do we get a hold of you?
It's Adrienne at thecaregiverspace.org. And every place else you can connect with us, you go from there. The communities are on Facebook.
Yep. And I'm Caregiver Dave, caregiverdave.com. Everything is there. Check out our free book, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing.